My name is Sarah Miller. I'm 74 years old, and up until 3 months ago, I lived a life that most people would call unremarkable. I live in a small, brick ranch-style house in Hendersonville, Tennessee, the kind of place where the humidity sticks to your skin by 10 in the morning and the sound of cicadas is the only thing that fills the silence of a Sunday afternoon. On February 13, 2026, I woke up feeling a strange, heavy pressure in my chest. It wasn't the sharp, cinematic pain you see in movies. It felt like someone had placed a lukewarm bag of sand right over my heart. I sat on the edge of my bed, my feet touching the cold hardwood, and I remember looking at my pill organizer. Monday. Blue pill, white pill, half a pink one. I reached for the water glass on my nightstand, but my fingers felt like lead. I watched my hand tremble, a slow, rhythmic shake that I couldn't stop. I thought it was just the heat, or maybe I hadn't eaten enough the night before. I stood up to walk to the kitchen, but the hallway suddenly felt miles long. The family photos on the wall, my grandson's graduation, my late husband's retirement party, began to blur at the edges, turning into smears of beige and gray. I tried to call out for my daughter, who was staying in the guest room, but my voice was just a dry rasp. The floor didn't rush up to meet me. It felt more like the room just folded away. I hit the carpet with a dull thud that I felt in my teeth. As I lay there, staring at the dust motes dancing in a sliver of sunlight under the linen closet door, I knew. This wasn't a dizzy spell. My heart was stuttering, skipping beats like a broken record, and then, quite simply, it stopped. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. It was the sound of a life ending in the middle of a Tuesday morning, with a half-empty glass of water still sitting on the nightstand. The next few minutes, or hours, time doesn't work the same way when you're slipping out, were a blur of sterile white and the smell of ozone. I wasn't in my hallway anymore. I was looking down at a gurney in the emergency room of Sumner Regional. I saw myself, and it's a terrifying thing to see your own body as an object. I looked smaller than I felt. My skin was a shade of gray that reminded me of wet clay, and my mouth was slack. I watched Dr. Aris, a man I'd seen for my blood pressure for 5 years, lean over me. His face was tight, his brow furrowed with a kind of professional desperation. "Standard protocol," he muttered to a nurse. "Charging to 200. Clear." I felt the phantom jolt in my chest, even though I was hovering near the ceiling tiles. I could see the dust on top of the heart monitor and a stray pen that someone had dropped under the crash cart. The medical terminology was a cold soundtrack to my exit. "Ventricular fibrillation," someone shouted. "Starting AP. Give me another round." I wanted to tell them to stop, not because I wanted to die, but because the effort seemed so noisy and violent compared to the stillness I was starting to feel. I saw my daughter, Megan, standing in the doorway for a split second before a nurse gently pushed her back. The look on her face, that raw, jagged grief, was the last thing that tied me to the room. I felt a pull, like a magnet moving behind a curtain. The hospital room didn't fade, I just stopped being a part of it. The beep of the EKG became a distant, rhythmic pulse that eventually slowed into a single, flat tone. I wasn't scared. I was just profoundly aware that the Sarah Miller who owned a ranch house and liked gardening was no longer the occupant of that body. I was being moved, drafted by a current I couldn't fight, toward a threshold that felt as solid as a wall and as thin as a veil. I didn't go through a tunnel of light. I didn't see my mother or my husband waiting with open arms. Instead, I found myself standing in a place that looked exactly like my own backyard, but the colors were calibrated differently. The grass wasn't just green, it felt alive, like it was breathing against the soles of my feet. I wasn't wearing my nightgown anymore. I felt solid, but light, like I'd finally shed a coat that had been 10 sizes too heavy for decades. I turned around, and he was just there. He wasn't glowing with a blinding, cinematic radiance. He looked like a man who had been working on himself, his skin white, his eyes deep, and suddenly the ground that seemed to see every mistake I'd ever made and every secret I'd ever kept. He was wearing a simple, dark tunic, and he was leaning against the open tree that my husband had planted 20 years ago. "Sarah," he said. His voice didn't echo. It was quiet, random, and sounded like it was The leaf was brown and shriveled, a sign of the late winter frost. "There is a season for the harvest, and there is a season for the pruning," he said. He looked at me then, and the gentleness in his eyes vanished, replaced by a terrifying clarity. "You're worried about the world you left," he stated. It wasn't a question. "You're worried about what you've been sensing in the air. The tension in the grocery stores, the way people look at each other in the streets. You think March is just another month on a calendar." He stepped closer, and the backyard began to shift. The peaceful green grass started to turn into something else, a map of faces, of cities, of flickering lights. "March 2026, he whispered, and the weight of that date hit me like a physical blow. "The veil is thinning, Sarah. Not just for you, but for everyone." The map beneath my feet didn't just show locations, it showed the state of people's hearts, and it looked like a flickering power grid. Jesus knelt down, touching a point on the ground that looked like a bustling city street. "In March 2026, the quiet tension your world has been holding in its lungs is going to be released," he said. His voice was flat, devoid of the comfort I expected. It was the tone of a doctor giving a terminal diagnosis. "The title of this season is The Great Exposure," he continued. "People think they are waiting for a war or a crash, but what is coming in March is a removal of the masks. I am allowing the internal state of every man and woman to become their external reality. The private rot will become public record. The hidden kindness will become a beacon." He looked up at me, his eyes dark and piercing. "In March, the middle ground disappears. You have seen the anger in the checkout lines, the way families stop speaking over a dinner table. That was the rehearsal. March is the performance." As he spoke, the imagery around us shifted. I saw a local bank branch in Hendersonville. It was ordinary, the fluorescent lights humming, but I could see the people inside. They weren't just standing in line, they were vibrating with a frantic, silent frequency. I saw a man I recognized from my neighborhood, Mr. Henderson, who always waved from his porch. He was staring at his phone, his face contorted into a mask of pure, unadulterated loathing. It wasn't about money. It was about a total collapse of trust. "The systems you rely on, the banks, the labels, the digital walls, they are going to stutter," Jesus said, his hand still hovering over the map. "Not to destroy the world, but to show you what you have built your houses on." March 2026 is when the sand begins to shift. It is the month when the why becomes more important than the what. Everyone will be forced to choose a side, not of a party, but of a spirit. There will be no more lukewarm souls by the time the spring equinox passes. The scene shifted again, and suddenly I was standing in my own living room. It was evening. The lamp by the recliner was on, casting long, tired shadows. My daughter, Megan, was sitting on the sofa, her face buried in her hands. Beside her was her husband, David. The air between them was thick, like it was filled with smoke. "Watch," Jesus whispered, standing just behind my shoulder. I saw David look at his phone, then at Megan. "I can't do it anymore," he said. His voice was cold, a sound I had never heard from him in 15 years of marriage. "The accounts are restricted, Megan. Everything we moved, everything we thought was safe, it's flagged. They're saying it's part of the reorganization. We have nothing until the audit clears in April." Megan looked up, her eyes red. "We did everything right, David. We followed the rules. We stayed quiet." "That's the point," David snapped, standing up. Staying quiet was the choice. And now the choice is being made for us. He grabbed his car keys. "I'm going to my brother's. He has the supplies we talked about. If you want to stay here and wait for a miracle that isn't coming, that's on you." He walked out, slamming the door so hard the picture of my grandson rattled on the mantel. Megan didn't cry. She just sat there, staring at the blank television screen. I reached out to touch her shoulder, but my hand passed through her like mist. "This is the personal cost," Jesus said. "The pressure of March will crack the foundations that were held together by habit instead of love. Families will split not because they hate each other, but because they are terrified, and terror reveals the true master of a person's life. David thinks his master is his security. Megan thinks her master is the rules. Both will find their masters have abandoned them by the third week of March. The silence in the room was deafening. I looked at the clock on the wall. It was March 14, 2026. The calendar on the fridge was marked with mundane things, dentist appointments, a bake sale, that now looked like relics of a dead civilization. Jesus stepped in front of me, blocking the view of my grieving daughter. He took both of my hands in his. His grip was firm, calloused, and terrifyingly real. "Sarah, listen to me. This is why the warning exists. This is why you are seeing this." He leaned in, his face inches from mine. March 2026 is the month of the divided gate. It happens because the world has reached a point of maximum friction between the truth and the lie. The outcome for every person is determined by one thing: what do you value more, your life or the light? Those who try to save their comfort will lose their peace. Those who are willing to lose their comfort will find their soul. He spoke with a terrifyingly clear authority. In the middle of that month, there will be a 3-day window of total digital silence. No phones, no banks, no news. The world will go dark to force the world to look inward. In that darkness, the reorganization will take place. It is not a political event, though men will use it for politics. It is a spiritual sifting. The outcome for you, for Megan, and for everyone listening, is determined by how you treat your neighbor when you have nothing left to trade. Why March? I whispered, my heart racing even in the spirit form. Because the seeds planted in the winters of the last 5 years have reached full growth, he said. The harvest cannot be delayed any longer. What changes is the visibility. You will no longer be able to hide who you are. If you are full of greed, your skin will practically glow with it. If you are full of love, you will be a target for some and a sanctuary for others. The why is simple: I am calling my own out of the burning building before the roof collapses. He looked back at the image of Megan, who was now kneeling on the floor, clutching a prayer shawl I had knitted her years ago. The warning is this: do not look to the screens for the answer. Do not look to the vaults for safety. In March, the only currency that will hold its value is the weight of your word and the depth of your mercy. Jesus didn't let go of my hands. The grip wasn't painful, but it was absolute, like the weight of a mountain pressing down on a single grain of sand. "Sarah," he said, and the backyard, the living room, and the flickering maps all dissolved into a singular, infinite gray space. It felt like being inside a cloud before a storm breaks. You see the fracture. You see the fear. But you must understand the choice. Suddenly, I wasn't just watching a movie of my life, I was standing in a grocery store. It was the Kroger on Main Street where I've shopped for 30 years. But the air was different. It tasted like copper, like the smell of a penny on your tongue. The shelves were half empty, but that wasn't the scary part. It was the silence. No music played over the speakers. No one was chatting. I saw a woman I knew from my gardening club, Martha. She was clutching a single gallon of milk to her chest like it was a gold bar. A younger man, maybe in his 20s, was walking toward her. He didn't have a weapon. He didn't even look angry. He looked hollow. His eyes were sunken, and his hands were shaking. "Please," he whispered. "My daughter. She hasn't had anything but water for 2 days." Martha didn't look at him. She tightened her grip on the plastic jug. "I have my own to look after," she snapped. Her voice was brittle, a sound that cracked the heavy silence of the aisle. "Go find your own. The trucks aren't coming until Tuesday, if they come at all." "This is the choice, Sarah," Jesus said, appearing beside me in the aisle. He wasn't looking at the milk, he was looking at Martha's face. The reorganization in March isn't just about the banks locking their doors. It's about the heart locking its doors. Martha has prayed to me every Sunday for 40 years. She calls herself mine. But in the moment of the divided gate, she chose the milk over the man. She chose the visible over the eternal. I felt a wave of nausea. I had sat next to Martha in pews. I had swapped lily bulbs with her. She's just scared, I pleaded. Fear is the great revealer, he replied. In March 2026, fear will be the wind that blows away the chaff. What remains is the only thing that was ever real. The outcome of that month for Martha isn't determined by whether she keeps the milk. It's determined by the fact that she no longer recognizes my image in that hungry man. The grocery store dissolved, and we were standing on a street corner in downtown Nashville. It was late afternoon, and the sun was a low, angry orange hanging between the skyscrapers. There were soldiers, or maybe they were private security. It was hard to tell because their uniforms were plain charcoal gray, standing at every intersection. They weren't arresting people. They were just watching. People were scurrying by, heads down, clutching tablets and phones that looked dead. Some people were wearing bright blue armbands, and others wore nothing at all. There was a palpable sense of us and them that felt like a physical barrier in the air. The public tension you feel now is a shadow of what March brings, Jesus said, gesturing to a group of people gathered around a digital kiosk that was flickering with red text. The digital silence I told you about? It starts here. When the screens go dark, the rumors will become the only truth people have. They will be told that their neighbors are the reason the accounts are frozen. They will be told that the unaligned are the reason the power is unstable. I watched a man in a business suit trip over the curb. No one helped him. People stepped over him as if he were a piece of trash. A woman stopped, looked at him for a second, and then saw a security guard watching her. She visibly flinched and walked faster, leaving the man on the pavement. The outcome of March 2026 is a global hardening, he said. The world will become a place of restricted access. Restricted food, restricted travel, but most importantly, restricted empathy. Those who follow the Spirit will be forced into the shadows, not because of a law, but because the very atmosphere of the world will become hostile to kindness. To be kind in March will be seen as a form of treason against the collective survival. He turned to me, and for the first time I saw a flicker of profound sorrow in his eyes. The title of your warning is for the grandmothers, Sarah. For the ones who remember what it was to love without a digital permit. You are the keepers of the old fire. If you let it go out in March, the darkness will be absolute. The street corner vanished, and I was back in the gray space. But this time I wasn't just an observer. I felt my own life being laid out like a garment on a table. I saw every time I had chosen my own comfort over a nudge from the Spirit. I saw the money I'd tucked away just in case while my neighbors were fleet. You are asking why you are here, Jesus said. You are asking why I am showing a 74-year-old woman the collapse of a world she is about to leave. He stepped closer, and I felt a heat radiating from him that made my soul tremble. Because you are not leaving yet, Sarah. Not yet. The reorganization needs witnesses who aren't afraid of the dark. But before you go back, you have to face your own march. Suddenly, I saw a vision of my own future, a moment just weeks away. I saw myself standing in my kitchen, holding my phone. A message was on the screen. It was from the government, a civic integrity notification. It said that my pension was being reprioritized because of my daughter Megan's unverified social contributions. Basically, because Megan had spoken out against the new local mandates, I was being punished. I felt a surge of pure, human rage. It's my money. I worked 40 years for that. I felt the urge to call Megan and scream at her, to tell her to shut up, to tell her to just play the game so I could have my check. There it is, Jesus whispered. The fracture. The moment you decide if Megan is your daughter or a liability. The moment you decide if I am your provider or if the state is. This is the personal threat that March brings to every doorstep. It will hit you where you are weakest. It will threaten your health, your home, or your children. I looked at the vision of my angry self in the kitchen. I looked at the resentment curdling in my heart. It was so easy to justify. It was fair to be angry. The outcome of March for you, Sarah, is decided in that kitchen, he said. Will you curse your daughter to save your check? Or will you take the prayer shawl and realize that the check was never what kept you alive? This is the direct answer to the warning. March 2026 is when the world tries to buy your soul with the things you think you can't live without. I sank to my knees. The weight of the choice was heavier than the death I had just experienced. I can't do it, I sobbed. I'm just an old woman. No, he said, lifting my chin. You are a lamp. And the darker it gets, the more important it is that you don't flicker. The weight of his hand on my chin was the last thing I felt before the infinite gray space began to fold in on itself. It didn't fade, it collapsed with a sound like a rushing wind, a roar that filled my ears until it became the high-pitched whine of a hospital monitor. Pain slammed into me like a freight train. My chest felt like it had been crushed under a heavy boot. I gasped, a ragged, wet sound that tore through my throat, and my eyes flew open. The ceiling tiles were there, the same ones I'd seen from above, but now they were blurry and yellowed. She's back. We have a rhythm. The voice was frantic. I felt hands on my shoulders, a cold stethoscope pressed against my skin, and the sharp sting of an IV line being adjusted. I tried to speak, to tell them about the grocery store, about Martha and the milk, about the charcoal gray uniforms, but all that came out was a choked sob. Dr. Eris leaned into my field of vision. He looked exhausted, his surgical mask hanging off one ear. Sarah? Can you hear me? You gave us quite a scare, Mrs. Miller. Your heart stopped for nearly 4 minutes. I looked past him. My daughter, Megan, was standing in the doorway, her face pale, her knuckles white as she gripped the doorframe. Behind her, through the small window of the cardiac unit, I saw the television mounted on the wall in the waiting room. The news ticker at the bottom was scrolling in bright red letters. It was February 13, 2026. The ticker read, National Liquidity Transition Phase 1 commences March 1st. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. My heart, now beating with a fragile, artificial feeling mechanical thud, skipped a beat. The doctor was talking about recovery, about stress-induced cardiomyopathy, and about a 2-week observation period. But I wasn't listening to his medical realism. I was looking at Megan. I was looking at the woman who, in a few short weeks, would be the reason my pension was threatened. I felt the surge of that protective, selfish anger again, and then I remembered the warmth of the hand on my chin. I'm okay, I managed to whisper, my voice sounding like gravel. I'm back. The 2 weeks in the hospital were a slow descent into the world Jesus had shown me. It started with small things. The hospital cafeteria stopped taking cash on the 20th. A sign was taped to the register, digital credits or pre-authorized health vouchers only. I watched a visitor, an elderly man in a veteran's cap, try to pay for a coffee with a $5 bill. The cashier didn't look him in the eye. She just pointed at the sign. I don't have a voucher, the man said, his voice shaking. I just have the $5. I can't help you, sir, she replied. Her tone was flat, robotic. It was the same restricted empathy I had seen in the vision. When I was finally discharged on February 27th, David came to pick me up. He didn't look at Megan. He kept his eyes on the road, his jaw set so tight I could see the muscles pulsing. How are the accounts, David? I asked softly from the back seat. He flinched. He looked at me in the rearview mirror, his eyes filled with a hollow, desperate kind of fear. They're pending, Sarah. The bank says it's a routine security update for the March 1st transition. But people are saying if you aren't aligned with the new civic standards, the pending status becomes permanent. He looked over at Megan, who was staring out the window at the Hendersonville suburbs passing by. Some people, David said, his voice dropping an octave, can't keep their mouths shut long enough to keep us safe. The air in the car turned thick, exactly like the smoke-filled atmosphere I had seen in my vision. We pulled into my driveway, and the old oak tree was there, its branches bare against the gray Tennessee sky. I looked at the trunk, expecting to see the brown, shriveled leaf Jesus had touched. It was there, one lone, dead leaf clinging to a bottom branch, vibrating in the wind. That night, I sat in my recliner, the house quiet. I opened my banking app on my phone. My balance was there, but next to the number was a small, yellow triangle with an exclamation point. I tapped it. Status, restricted. Reason, household association audit. Please contact your local civic integrity office. My stomach dropped. It was happening. Not in a cinematic explosion, but in the quiet, clinical glow of a smartphone screen. The reorganization wasn't a future threat. It was the air I was breathing. It is now the second week of March 2026. The digital silence hasn't fully arrived yet, but the internet is a ghost town of broken links and under-maintenance screens. The grocery stores look exactly like the Kroger I saw, hollowed out, populated by people who look at each other with suspicion instead of greeting. This morning, the mailman didn't come. Instead, a plain white envelope was tucked into my front door. It wasn't a letter. It was a printed notice with my name and social ID. Final notice, pension disbursement reprioritized. Status, zeroed. Reason, failure to meet the social stability covenant via household association. I looked up from the paper and saw Martha across the street. She was loading boxes into her car, her movements frantic. Our eyes met for a split second. Usually, she'd wave or ask how my heart was doing. Today, she looked at me with a cold, jagged sort of terror. She saw the white envelope in my hand. She knew what it meant. She looked away and slammed her trunk shut, her face a mask of the same us and them hardening I had seen in Nashville. I walked into my kitchen and looked at the prayer shawl I had knitted for Megan. It was sitting on the counter, soft and cream-colored. My phone buzzed on the table. It was a text from David. I'm leaving for my brother's tonight. Megan won't come. She's staying there to witness. I can't protect you anymore, Sarah. You should have talked to her. I felt the anger rise, the hot, human desire to blame my daughter for my empty bank account and my lonely house. I reached for the phone to call her, to tell her to fix this, to tell her that I'm 74 and I deserve my peace. But then, I looked at my hand. On the back of my wrist, where the 4 had been in the hospital, there was a small, faint bruise in the perfect shape of a thumbprint. It wasn't fading like a normal bruise. It was warm. I looked at the dead oak tree through the kitchen window. The lone brown leaf finally let go of the branch and drifted down to the cold earth. I didn't pick up the phone. Instead, I picked up the prayer shawl and wrapped it around my shoulders. The house was cold, the accounts were gone, and the world outside was turning its back on itself. I sat down at the kitchen table and waited for the silence to begin. Beyond the window, the first buds of a Nashville spring were trying to push through the frost, but the sky remained a heavy, unyielding gray. I reached out and touched the wood of the table, feeling the grain, feeling the reality of the moment. The light in the hallway flickered once, twice, and then stayed off. I checked the time on my wrist. It was exactly noon. The silence had started.